everyone. I hope you're all well, and I hope that you all managed to find a little bit of joy in your day today. My name is Aboutbali. I am a representative of the School of Economics and Finance, and today I'll be interviewing you just to get a bit of insight and perspective into Citi Bank, what it does and what it's done to them. But before I go on any further, I'd just like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to be here with me today. I truly appreciate it. And I'm sure the students at the School of Economics and Finance will find this a very great value. So first of all, let's get started by, I'm gonna ask Thomas to please just tell us about Citi Bank as a firm. To the people who don't know Citi Bank, please just tell them, what would you say to them about what Citi Bank is and what it does, and then please just tell us about the corporate banking division within Citi Bank.
Okay, yeah, I'll try and there's a lot to say, but I'll try and keep it. Keep it brief.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Citi is a global bank, very much a global bank, possibly one of the most global banks that there is, and we're present in I think approaching 100 countries, and we're split into a consumer bank and an institutional bank. An institutional bank is, in other words, a bank that deals with companies, governments, other banks, etc. And I think our global presence really is one of our unique selling points. And the way we approach it is that for all of our clients, we are a local bank in the country where they are headquartered, but then we can service them globally. And there are very few banks who can, if any, who can do it as well as we can. And in South Africa, it's the same. We have a fully fledged branch in South Africa, which with 200-300 employees, and you know our South African headquartered names. The corporate bank is responsible for them, and you know we service them head office level, but also in all the different countries where they operate. So the corporate bank effectively sits kind of at the heart of the relationship that Citi has with its institutional clients. In other words, corporations, governments, and financial institutions. And so we kind of act as the, if you like, the glue between the client and then the various product specialists and other departments that exist within Citi. So we identify and execute opportunities for collaboration with these clients, everything from, you know, large financings of M&A situations through to, you know, hedging, foreign exchange, account openings, and all of that. And we also in the corporate bank will lead conversations with our risk department when a client wants to borrow money, for example. So we do get to work on, you know, some of the highest profile transactions that South African companies get themselves into in South Africa and beyond. And this means the breadth, you'll have got the picture, it's quite a broad role, and we do get to be you know, knowledgeable, reasonably knowledgeable across all the different products that the bank offers. We have to be client friendly, we have to be persuasive with our internal stakeholders to make sure that we get things done. We have to be good at multitasking because we're dealing with you know, lots of different clients at the same time.
Okay.
That's a bit of a snapshot.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. That was very informative. I really appreciate that. So now we will move on to having the individual introductions. I'm just going to ask everyone to just start by introducing themselves, their role at Citi Bank, you know, education, and just like, yeah, about you at Citi Bank. I'll start with Sanusha. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, Mbali. Let me know if I can come across clearly. But I'm Sanusha Chetty. So I joined Citi in 2019, and I'm part of Tom's team in corporate banking. So I'm a relationship manager that oversees metals and mining companies, as well as a few of the other JSE listed corporates in our market. I studied at UCT, so grew up in Durban, studied in UCT, and then I actually signed with Barclays ABSA after my degree. So I spent my first 12 years in banking with a different banking group, but what I was focused on was debt capital markets, so helping clients raise debt from investors in the market. I helped out with group treasury, so on bank and capital liquidity requirements. And then I finished off my stint there helping cover real estate clients, so some of the top tier property companies we have in our market. So that's me in a nutshell. And then so far, Citi's been quite exciting to join, I would say.
Okay, that's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm going to ask Neil to please go on and introduce yourself to us.
Sure, how's this, Bali? So I'm Neil Govender. I started at Citi back in 2018. I was actually part of the original graduate program for Barclays Africa. So I also started alongside Sanusha, but she has a lot more experience than me. I think my banking career is about 7 years. When I started off in leverage finance. Then I did a bit of M&A, and that's when I came across the Citi, and I also work alongside Tom in the corporate bank. I generally cover quite a bit of the corporate names, and it's been quite exciting. I think the cool thing about being at Citi is that you're treated as a leader from the get-go. So you're a project manager in the sense that you work across M&A, leverage finance, markets, TTS, treasury, trade, across the board. So it gives you a lot of good exposure. And over and above the actual product exposure, you get a lot of geography exposure. Often we're on calls with people that are based in Brazil, in Hong Kong, in Australia, London, New York. It's a bit difficult when you're matching up the time zones, but it brings out that element, that exciting element, that you're able to work on transactions across the globe.
Yeah.
And then over and above Citi, what I really enjoy doing in my personal time is watching rugby and soccer. So a massive sport fan. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, nice to meet you, Neil. Now I'm going to move on to Zuzi. Zuzi, will you please just tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. So I joined Citi in 2019. Previously to that, I was at UCT. I did a BSci and finance with accounting. Then I joined the team as a grad. I had a great 2 years of that, and then recently joined the team now as an analyst. And I work covering both the corporate, so Sanusha and Tom's side, and then recently a bit more on the public sector side. But yeah, it's, as Neil said, it's definitely a great experience in terms of networking, also with the international teams, as well as just you learn a lot. Given it was my first job out of varsity, very great experience and good start.
Okay. Thank you, Zuzi. Thank you so much. And then I'm just gonna go on to ask Thomas to just close that off by please just telling us a bit more about yourself. I know you.
Sure. Yes. As you can probably hear, I'm originally from the UK, but I've been based in Johannesburg for the last sort of 2.5 years or so in this role as head of the corporate bank here. Thoroughly enjoying my time here in SA. I joined Citi originally in 2002. I started off in our risk department. I then, and that was in London. I then spent a year in Amsterdam in my mid-20s, which was a lot of fun, as I'm sure you can imagine. And then came back to London to work in the risk department again, at different time, working more with kind of distressed names. So companies that we'd lent money to, but they'd fallen on hard times, and we were uncertain whether we were going to get money back. So that was quite interesting. I then did 12 years in the capital markets division, mostly covering originating loans and distributing loans, structuring them, emerging markets, including Africa, including South Africa. And I got to know quite a few of my current clients through that role, and that naturally led into the posting down here in Joburg. I have a wife and 3 kids, three youngish kids, and they're obviously all at school here. They're enjoying themselves as well. But it's obviously quite a juggling match, making sure you get the right balance between work time and family time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone. Like, it's very, very nice to get to know you all and to meet you all. And you guys seem to have quite extensive careers, right? You started a really long time, a really long time ago, so from the outside looking in, it may seem like you guys have always had it just figured out and stuff like that, which leads me to my next question, right? A question that was presented by the students that we want to know. Is there anything that you wish you had known in your years of studying or in your early years while trying to start out in your career? Is there anything that you wish you had known? Is there something you could give to someone who's just starting out with their careers, who's still in school, who's still studying, about just how to navigate the finance industry that you guys have been in for so long? Is there anything that you wish you had known? I'll start by Sanusha.
Yeah, well, maybe we can just have a fluid conversation. I think I felt I would have researched more. I think when people think about banking, there's the general understanding of ABSA's Standard Bank, a retail bank, getting a corporate card, getting a credit card, going to the branch to withdraw cash. And so when you're interviewing at a bank, and let's say at Citi specifically, when we don't actually have retail banking locally, you need to do your research, understand the bank globally, and understand the company or the office that you're speaking to. It's quite tough, I think, back then when I was younger, because there wasn't enough information to clarify between all of these different teams and banking products that we've listed. But I find with some of the analysts or grads that come through, we don't get a sense of how much of research they've done. And it's okay not to know. You can ask us questions in the interview, you can ask bankers, you can try and Google around and see what happens. And then secondly, you also get out of your head, especially during interviews. You're very reserved, you're unsure. If you keep quiet and you don't breathe, how are the interviewers going to really get to know you? So that would be my two suggestions. Research, get comfortable, and it's okay to ask questions because you need to find out if this is the right industry, the right job, and the right company that you want to look at.
Sure.
And then lastly, the Gibbs ex-dean had a great saying. He said, what got you in the room won't get you out of the room. So if you compare it when you were at school, when you started school, you really didn't know what was happening. It's the same feeling you experience when you start university. So you'll go through the same feeling when you're looking to start a new job or a career or you're interviewing. And that's okay to be nervous, but understand it's a growth cycle. So you're just going to go through another growth cycle, and you've just got to explore and see what happens in the first 3 years after varsity.
Thank you for that, Sanusha. Thank you. As Sanusha suggested, this is going to be a fluid conversation. So does anyone else have something to say on that point, on that question, to just give a bit of advice on students starting out and people just starting out in their careers?
Maybe Mbali, I'm happy to come in here.
Okay, so we'll take it.
Okay. I think maybe I can speak to the varsity side and just, I think what I'd say is from like first year or second year, you don't have to have it all figured out. As much as I'd love to say for the purposes of having my team on, I knew from day one that I always wanted to be in corporate banking. That's definitely not the case. So I think definitely be open to learning, as Sanusha said. I think in varsity, make use of like all the societies that are available. I mean, when I joined, I initially thought, well, when I started out, I wanted to do the CA route, and clearly things took a different turn. But I think what helped me in that is just being open to learning, finding out about other opportunities that are available. And that helps you a lot because then you end up finding what's for you, and then you don't feel so trapped in the few options that that are out there.
Thank you for that. I know quite a few students go through that which you speak about, Susie, and I think that will be a very great point of reference to them, that you say it's someone who's now working in the division of corporate banking, and just about opening yourself up to opportunities at varsity, and just like getting to explore more on who you are and just opening your mind up, you know. Is there anyone else who wants to take that? I think it was Neil who.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apart from the actual varsity part of it, I think what's quite interesting now is for university students to differentiate themselves from each other. So the two things that I'd like to really bring up, and if I knew it earlier on, I probably would have upskilled myself alongside these lines, was to firstly grow your network. Even if it's people in your university, even if it's people outside of the university, it's so important to have a network when you actually move into the workspace. Some of my close friends now, who work at various other companies, are part of my network. And you know, if I'm working with a certain company, I can very easily call them up and say, "Hey guys, this is what I'm talking about." And it's so nice to have someone within the company. It's very, very important, especially in corporate bank, because at the end of the day, we manage relationships. So the bigger or the greater volume of relationships we have, the better we are at doing our job. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, it's not all about academics. You can get 11 A's in matric. You could have come up with summa cum laude. And if your personality is just hasn't been, or it doesn't fit, it just doesn't fit. I think what's quite important is for people to also do extramurals, other things that interest them. Be entrepreneurial. It really benefits you, especially when you're in the job world.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Neil. Thank you. And also, I just wanted to ask on that, because it is part of conversation among students, the networking part of it, you know. Do you suggest that students go to networking events? Because as you know, varsity culture is not, you don't know everyone, and you don't see everyone all the time and stuff like that. So suggestions on the networking part of it. What do you suggest? Do you suggest joining societies and, or I don't know, please just tell students about that. What are the ways that students could market themselves and, grow their network?
So on my side, I think I'm probably only going to talk about two things and then open up to the rest of the floor. Okay. Is firstly, have an elevator pitch. So have a 30-second pitch that you know about yourself, that if you had to meet anyone tomorrow, they can in 30 seconds know who you are and know your background. I think that's very, very important. And practice that. I mean, even if it's the night before, or even if you're sitting in the car and just talking to yourself and listening to the radio, practice your elevator speech, because when you go there, that is your one chance to knock it really well. So have the elevator pitch. And then secondly, have a couple questions beforehand that you'd like to ask someone before you actually network with them. Because very easily people can see if someone is just trying their luck or is just not prepared. So that's the two things. Preparation is quite important around these networking events.
Look, I like the societies because it gave me a chance to listen to some of the companies that were coming through to present. So it gave me a little bit more information. But to be honest, I mean, students can set up a profile on LinkedIn and follow some companies that you're interested in. Or there's various websites like MoneyWeb or Business Day, or even global websites like Reuters or Bloomberg. Because remember, even though we're focused as a bank, we talk about the economy, we talk about the world, we talk about different clients. So for students, I think it's more upskilling yourself and knowing what's happening in the broader financial markets and the world per se, politics, business, whatever. So if you had to meet someone from a company, let's say a retailer, you want to speak to them about how they think about the government, the FX rates, the consumer, is inflation affecting their business, or how's sales doing? Or what are the property companies saying, about retail per se? So I think societies help, but it's very much one-dimensional. I think you need to use some of the resources available online that you can access.
Online, yeah. LinkedIn is a very great one. Okay? Thank you for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because if you're going into interview, no one's gonna expect you to know how corporate banking interacts with the department and what Citi's risk policies look like and all the rest of it. I mean, that's stuff you'll learn on the job, but having a general demonstrating a general awareness of the environment and how banks fit into it. Maybe a couple of news stories where Citi's been involved, a couple of transactions that Citi's done that have been made public, and even better if you can have a couple of probing questions around those transactions. That makes a huge difference.
Okay, thank you for all your inputs, everyone. It's very much appreciated. And then the next question is, is there now, this one is a bit more into, it's a follow-up of this question now that we've gotten into, is is there any advice that you give to someone looking to get specifically into corporate banking? So, are there, as Neil said, it's not all about academics, but is there any advice? Like, what would you say to someone who really, really wants to get into corporate banking specifically? And just, are there any interpersonal skills that they need, numerical, just those sort of skills? Can you just advise on that?
Well, look, from a CV perspective, it's the first gauge, right? It's the first cross-check. So make sure you've got a 2-pager CV that looks good. No spelling errors, great formatting, highlights what you do, who you are, and a little bit of content. Because remember, you're one of maybe 40 to 100 people applying. So keep it short, to the point, and highlights. Try and write your CV for the type of company you're applying to. So if you're interested in banking, try and highlight some of the banking stuff or projects or societies that may be related. If you're going to a healthcare company, write it differently. You don't need the same CV for the same company. And I would say the interview counts. It's the first impression of you, your character, your passion, what you're interested in. And sometimes we see great CVs, but people just bomb out because they're so nervous or they're so rehearsed. We don't get a sense of who you are, and it's okay. If you don't match for our team, you might match for another team. So prepare for it and practice with friends, practice with family members, and say, hey, you know what, can I just run through a quick interview, how I come across and what I could improve? I would say that's important from our side. I don't know, Tom, from you as a hiring manager, what do you look for?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The CV point is really important, and as you said, when you said 40 to 100 people, I think applying for a role, I think it's even generally significantly more than that. And so, of course, we don't have time to interview every person that applies, and so there is some weight is put on what's on paper, and absolutely worth taking a bit of extra time to get through to use your CV to get you through the first page.
Okay. So the next question is, now for you guys, what skills do you feel like are most critical in your job? So for your role that you do at Citi Bank, what do you think are the skills that are most critical, for you? So again, this may be, interpersonal, numerical, those sorts of skills. What skills do you think are most critical?
I think everyone can, there's so many different skills that we need to call upon. It's a very broad role. And so, lots of, I'm sure that the other people will add as well. I think one is just being able to keep a sense of perspective, if you could. I mean, that, we every day we have a to-do list that's, covers several sheets of paper if you wrote it out. And you have lots of phone calls, conference calls and stuff, and meetings during the day, which means that generally by the end of the day, your to-do list is even longer than it was at the start because you've not had any time to do anything on it. So, so I think, just sort of being able to prioritize, work out what's important to focus on, and then remember that you're part of a much bigger team, that you're never being asked to do any of this stuff by yourself. If to do, there's not enough hours in the day, then there's always help at hand. And so yeah, I think keeping perspective and remembering that you're part of the team.
So those are interpersonal skills. You need to be able to work with other people, I imagine, and just all those, basically interpersonal. Thank you. Would you say
Yeah,
would you say it's a great environment for introverts as well? Because I know there's people who are quite shy, and wondering how they might be able to fit into the office environment and just like working with other people. So do you think that's a critical skill in like working within the corporate banking division?
Working from home is probably suits more introverted people than being in the office. But sorry, Sanusha, go for it.
Yeah, remember, introverts or extroverts around energy, right? Extroverts derive energy from other people, introverts don't. So it's more about how you come across. And it doesn't mean that the loudest person is the person who's right in the room. And I think Citi culture is great. We've got a team culture. It doesn't matter if you're a new joiner or a very experienced MD. You do have a say at the table. You can contribute, and you can contribute in different ways. And I think this is a very key point for someone. You need to know what you enjoy. If you don't like being in a sales role and constantly engaging with people, then don't pick a sales role where you're constantly engaging with people. It's a good skill to hone, but there's other roles that could be more technical. You could be much more smaller teams, much working with more systems. So it's not necessarily if you're shy or reserved, but remember, if you're shy and reserved, you need to practice to speak to people and present, because it's a sales pitch to get in. So I think that's the difference you need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a mix of cultures, diversity. Citi's very diverse, I would say. Hey, we're in over 98 countries. A good mix of gender, diversity, backgrounds, religions. It's a nice place to be, I would say.
So everybody's like characters kind of formed, and they encourage you to be you and grow as an individual. That's what I get.
Yes, I'd definitely say that, but we're a performance culture. So there's a performance and accountability culture, and there's a passion around it. So if you're not passionate about your job and performing, and I've seen one of your questions is about how long are the hours in the corporate bank, you're not going to enjoy your role.
Yeah, that's one of the questions.
I was going to tell Tom, it's like uncapped Wi-Fi. We're always on. There is
Yeah, it's like 5G at Citibank.
Yeah, 5G.
No days off. Okay. So the next question is, when starting off, what was it like for you trying to find, employment? A lot of young people go on social media to share about just how difficult it is for them, like how Sanusha was talking about the interviewing process, and even just to get an interview. It's very difficult for young people. And I just want to know a bit from you guys, like, what was it like for you when you were starting off? Were you, was there any, employment anxiety and just all these things from you? Susie, you can take that for us first.
Sure. Definitely around the employment anxiety. I think in my final year, definitely I was like, so what have all these 4 years accumulated to? But then I'd say definitely just apply everywhere. If you're interested, don't second guess whether you meet obviously you should meet the requirements, but I don't think you should cut yourself off just off of maybe not ticking one box. Apply everywhere. And then when you finally do get into the interview room, I think as Sanusha said, prep. But also that being said, interviewing is a skill. So I think the more you do it, the better you get at it. Because the first one you will bomb out, you'll be very nervous. They'll ask you questions that blindside you. But the more you do interview, the more those questions don't blindside you. Then you kind of have a way to cope through those questions, even when you don't know. So I'd say it is very hard. Definitely the employment in SA is just very bad. There's people I started out with in varsity that still haven't found a job now post-graduating. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think it always speaks to your skills. I think sometimes it speaks to what's happening in our economy.
Yeah. Is there any other
I have to, it was a long time ago. Remember back to year 2000 or so. I was applying for internships. So it was in my last year at university, and I wanted to go into law, and that's what I had. I had 6 law firms and 1 bank. All the rejected me, and the bank, which I guess you can guess which bank it is, except it wasn't just because I was hopelessly inept at law and great at banking. I think it was the reason I actually got to know some folks at Citi beforehand. I was running a university society. Well, it was registered as a society. That was actually a jazz singing group, but it counted as a society. And so we got an email in saying that Citi Bank is sponsoring, has some sponsorship money. You probably don't do this anymore, but some sponsorship money for X number of societies, come and pitch to us. And we thought, well, obviously the economic society and the business, whatever society is going to come along and pitch, but we might as well go along and do something a little bit different. So we went along, black tie, did it with sort of singing. We did a PowerPoint presentation, of course, but it was all with a musical background. So we were a bit of a wild card there, but we got the sponsorship, and I was in touch with a few people. Because obviously they didn't just give us the money, they wanted to make sure you're putting it to good use. So we were talking over those few months, and then after that, the opportunity came up to apply for the internship, and I got through. But I think there's two lessons from that. One is that I clearly was not well enough prepared for the internships. Interviews. I know that I didn't put enough time into understand interview technique and what those firms did. But also I think it's important to if you can find other ways to differentiate yourself, to get to know a few people, whether it's through LinkedIn or through chance conversation, whatever. I think that sort of thing can help, because when it comes down to it, your CV plus a short interview is it's hard to get a true picture of people, and it's hard for someone who's very good to necessarily through in that short time.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Tom, I actually have a follow-up question for you. Did you play any instruments in the jazz club?
No, it was a cappella, so just voice.
Oh, okay. I think we need to bring that up in a couple of our.
I think that needs to be divulged internally.
There's a bit of beatbox. Is that?
Neil, are you going to share, please?
Oh yeah. So I share very similar sentiments as Yuzi. It was extremely difficult when we were applying for jobs and roles and where you want to be. The only advice that I have for every grad that's applying and for other grads or interns that are applying to get into Citi is to back yourself, guys. You've been working really hard for the past 4 years. You didn't get into honors by luck. You've worked really hard. Now back yourself and push through. If it happens, if it happens. If it doesn't, it's just the way it's meant to be, and you just keep trying harder. But the more often you try, the greater your chance is of getting what you really want. So keep pushing at it.
Neil, that's your WhatsApp tag, isn't it? Back yourself, something along.
Yeah, hashtag back yourself, hashtag stay motivated.
I like that. The last question here for this pod is there any value in mentorship, and would you advise students to get a mentor? Would you guys advise students to get a mentor, someone who's already in corporate and just stuff like that? Do you think that you would have, I don't know, back in your undergrad days and stuff like that, do you think a mentor would have been of great value to you?
I definitely think so. I think in my experience, I relied on my family and network. Maybe they weren't the best because maybe they weren't so corporate, or luckily I had some people that had banking experience. But yeah, mentors are there to guide you, right? To give you some certainty, to give you some pointers, maybe to help you understand things or talk through things or practice through things. So it's always good. But I find don't pick someone on LinkedIn that you've never met before and send them a connection invite. Send them a text and introduce yourself and ask, put some commentary down on why you want to speak to them. I find that's also a little bit of a mistake that some students do. But yeah, definitely mentors help, but mentors are there for stages in your life and what you actually need. You need to drive that conversation. So it's not like you find someone and they solve all your problems, but it would help. it's all about that research, right, that we talked about and prep work.
And also just to ask on that part about, the LinkedIn thing. So for students who, for example, messaging someone you've never met before, is that an appropriate thing, or is it not appropriate for students to do that? Do you suggest that students message the people who are maybe within the varsity and just stuff like that? And if they're speaking to someone who perhaps they have never met before, what do you think is the main thing that they should say? Do you think that they should state that, hi, I want to speak to you because I would like for you to become my mentor? How do you think they should drive that conversation? Which is the most appropriate way for it from your perspective?
Well, maybe I'll go first and then the guys can come in. Look, if it's a CEO, you may have very little chance of getting through, right? So know your audience or your target.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can go out there saying, I want you to be my mentor. I think you first need to know that person, right? So I think you should rather say, hi, I'm a student, I'm studying this degree, I'm interested in your sector, or I'd like to speak to you because I think you could help me with something, and specify the something. Maybe you want to clarify something, or rather ask for a conversation. Don't ask for a mentor. Ask for the mentor when you know them, you've got rhythm, you can connect with this person, and then it develops, because a mentorship is a relationship, right? So that would be my suggestion.
I think you're right. It's got to be a specific. You've got to show that there's a specific reason for getting in touch with this particular person. You've seen something they've written, or the role that they do is in an area that you're very, very keen on. Because if it looks like a generic message, for all that person knows, you've written 200 of these scattergun, hope that someone's going to pick you up, which definitely doesn't give such a good impression.
And also, I just wanted to ask this final question. Anyone can take it, but it's on what Neil said about the networking part of it. Is there a general understanding? Because I think as students, some students are very self-conscious about the networking thing, because at the same time, there's that thing you don't want to take advantage of another person or whatever. I just want to know, in the corporate or working space, like LinkedIn and the people who are there, which is you guys, is there a general understanding that, speaking or building relationships and networking is, I don't know, is it a common and a normal thing? Like, is it okay? Is there an understanding that speaking to this person will be because of this? Or is it just about building relationships regardless of what the position the other person holds, and just, taking it from there? Or is there an understanding that if I'm talking to this person and they're, I don't know, the CEO or whatever, then I'm looking for opportunities? What is the culture in that? Is it okay to do that?
Maybe I can step in because I'm kind of experiencing that now. So, for example, the network is quite important because let's say somebody who doesn't know Sanusha wants Sanusha to be the mentor. It's so much easier to start a conversation, say, hi, Sanusha, my name is Neil. I noticed that you're mutual contacts with one of my friends, Zuzi. And Zuzi said you'd be a great person to speak to. That opens the door, and then that builds the conversation. I might have not known Zuzi at all for the last 10 years, but because I spoke to Zuzi first and I built that relationship with her, I can use that connection with Zuzi to now speak to Sanusha. And Sanusha could have been the CEO for any other company later on in the future or anything of that sort. But that just shows the power of what a network can do. And it's very similar to how LinkedIn works. If you're starting that conversation with people, and if you're trying to speak to Zuzi, and now you say, hey, hi Zuzi, I noticed that you're mutual contacts or you're a friend of this person. I have a couple of questions you'd be able to help me. It just makes it a lot more personal. And then that small relationship that you build there, you can use later on. For example, if you're trying where we are now, where we try to onboard new companies, for example, often, and I mean, I think I'm quite a socialite, but I definitely don't have all these CEOs on my Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more easier to speak to them if I have other people who actually know them. And that could be my introduction into that relationship.
And that's a great point. There's a difference between a social network and a professional network. Your professional network can also be your friends, but be very careful how you blend them, right? And how comfortable you get, because you wouldn't approach someone you don't know in a business forum being very jovial and friendly. Maybe it's your color, your personality. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying it's be very sensitive to the different types of networks that you set up and how you share information in those networks. And think about it, you talk about companies and businesses, but it's people at the end of the day. And the more people that know you or can help you, the better it is for you. But it doesn't mean that you should be only focused at seniors, CEOs, C-suite, people above you. Understand there's people at your level, below your level, and above your level that can help you. And I think that's also a mistake some new joiners do. They want to walk straight to the CEO office or the head of the branch or the head of the company and say, I'm this student, you need to know me because I'm this great. And then they forget that there's a whole network in the company that could help them get to that door and be more impactful than just going by your own. So I think that's something to consider as well.
Okay. And I think
it's not like the movies.
Neil?
Not like
It's
that?
not like the movies. It's not like the movies where the young grad comes in, walks straight into the CEO's office and says something deep and profound.
Yeah, that's a big misconception, hey? So, okay, from what I get from you guys is that it is normal to, so for example, Sanusha, as the relations manager, for example, if someone's speaking to you on LinkedIn, of course you would understand that, would you understand that it's not a personal relationship, but a professional relationship that you're looking to build with this person? Like, I imagine people on LinkedIn, or you guys are not on LinkedIn to make friends, but it's just business, or, please just clarify on that.
I think, so in my personal perspective, I keep my Facebook separate to my LinkedIn. Some of my friends who are in the industry or in other industries are my friends on Facebook, but they're also linked to me on LinkedIn. But then I'm also friendly and I've got a relationship with my clients and my other professionals in the industry. But remember, it's purposeful, right? LinkedIn is there from a professional work environment. You can have detailed conversations and engage one another. But it's not the place to put up pictures of a braai with beers and social events and going to concerts. It's a different forum and a different platform. So it's not to say that you can't blend them, but in our industry as well, we're very regulated. So even though I've got friends at other banks and companies, I don't talk to them about things that we're doing because we're regulated and there's strict compliance. So you've got to be mindful of the footprint you create and the things you say on social media or platforms, because it's there forever. And so you got to be particular. And I protect my network. So the way LinkedIn works is you need to have more than 500 connections if you get picked up in searches. But that doesn't mean just invite everyone. Be purposeful. And if I've got CEOs or CFOs or regulators in that network, I'm not just going to accept a random invite and have that person access my network. So there's a few things you need to think of as you get more experienced in your career and how you think about what you're trying to achieve. And as a student, right, the first thing people are going to do is Google you. And if you come up on LinkedIn, they're going to review you. But if you come up on Facebook, they'll review you. So be careful of what type of person you're putting out there, because when you go into that interview room, people are going to see both sides of you. And I'm not saying don't be yourself, not at all. Like if you're a super rugby crazy fan like Neil, cool. But just be mindful of that.
Okay.
I don't know, Tom, what about your side? How do you think about platforms and connections and network?
Yeah, I have a relatively small social media presence, to be honest. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I have a Facebook profile, though my picture is about 14 years old, I think. I think I adopt a relatively cautious approach, because your point about the shadow that your social media profile casts, it's good. It is, I guess, there forever, and as you said. So I have a reasonably specific LinkedIn network. I think, yeah, I don't you know, ask for or accept kind of random connections, but there seem to be plenty of other ones that we have, you know, that people I've run into in the last 19 or so years with Citi. So it's reasonably extensive.
Okay. Thank you so much for that insight. So now we're going to move on to the students' questions, right? A couple of students went on our link and they typed in some questions which you know, they'd like for you to answer. So the first one is, what are the working hours in corporate banking? So are they flexible? Is it? I imagine it to be 8 to 5, but I need someone to clarify.
I don't think you'll find 8 to 5 in any job. It doesn't exist. I don't know anyone who works 8 to 5, even if they leave at 3 o'clock. I know people that still take work home. So this notion of 8 to 5 doesn't exist in our society. Really doesn't. Maybe for legal contracts.
Oh, work-life balance does not exist, basically.
No, it does. But I think you need to understand work-life balance means life. Sometimes it's work priorities, sometimes it's life priorities, and people choose between it. You can't separate it, because if you're stressed out at work, you're stressed out outside of work. And so that balance is more, you know what, make sure you enjoy what you're doing, inevitably what you focus on. But yeah, we don't, I think you have set hours from a legal employment contract, but it doesn't stop. And I mean, I joined and people told me Citi doesn't sleep. And I thought they were joking, but I think because we're global and the different hours, it can be long, but it's not unbearable. Some weeks we're busy, some weeks we're not.
Would you say the passion for the job makes it bearable? Like if you like your job, it makes it easy to do.
Definitely.
Basically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think
but it's a nice thing because I can call Tom at any time of the day if I need him, and he knows it's important. It's not like, you know, I'm calling Susie late at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and she knows it's not important.
Yeah. I think Susie has something to say.
Sure, I was just saying on Sanusha's point, I think a good one that she said is that it's kind of life, it's all encompassed into that. So if you quite focus on your career and your growth at the moment, you can't necessarily view it as taking away from your work-life balance, because you are prioritizing that at the moment. And again, the passion does play into it. So yeah, the hours aren't a 9 to 5, but they are variable.
Okay.
And I know banking has got a bad name from various sources, but you know, for crazy hours and everything that goes with that. And look, I mean, there's absolutely we have busy times, and sometimes we have to work at the weekends, and sometimes, you know, late into the evenings. But other times it's quieter, and I think that that there's a real consciousness within Citi, maybe within the broader industry as well now, that you know, people can't just keep working 20 hours a day, you know, and survive off coffee and all the rest of it. We're all human. No one you know, everyone will burn out if they won't be enjoying themselves if they're working too crazily. So, and especially in this working from home environment, which I guess will be or a partial work from home environment that will probably last longer. You know, it's harder, even harder than usual, to get those boundaries between the working day and your own time. And I think that, you know, in the last year and a bit through COVID, it's been a learning experience for everyone. And I think that, you know, we've all been through times when we've you know, not spent enough time with our friends and family, and spent too much time in front of the computer. And so there's a big drive to encourage everyone to, I guess, respect evenings, respect people's weekends. Even we've instituted firm-wide this idea of, I think it's firm-wide, but certainly a large part of the Bank this concept of my hour, which basically means that during the day, you can block out an hour in calendar for basically some me time. I guess that sounds a bit like a lunch hour, and I guess you can use it as a lunch hour, or it could be some point in the afternoon, and you can. But just to give people a bit of headspace in a way that otherwise you might not get the chance to have.
Yeah, yeah.
And Tom, even Zoom free Fridays, right? Where you can switch off your video.
Video, yes, exactly.
Oh,
If you don't
okay.
want to brush your hair in the morning on a Friday, then that's fine.
Okay. Thank you guys for saying that, because I think that is really key, because I think the reason why this question was asked is because a lot of students kind of have this perspective that, like, after university, things just finally get more freer and we're just more able to do the things that we want more, and just, without having to worry about working. But I think it adds on to what Sanusha said about passion, and you just being able to balance that out for yourself. I mean, work is work, and life is life. So I think that really clarifies a lot of things for students and gives some perspective on what it's like really to work. I should also ask this: is it what it's like? Like, is working in Citi Bank, or just in corporate in general, is it what it's portrayed to be on, Wall Street movies and stuff like that? Is it the endless cell phone calls and coffee and all of that? Is that what it's like?
Definitely.
Really?
Definitely, exactly. No. I'm joking. No, we don't have helicopters landing on the buildings every 6 hours and then catching flights on a daily basis. No, I don't think it's in any way similar to how it is in the movies. But I think the cool thing about working at Citi Bank is we're always we're quite innovative in the way we think. So that puts us at the forefront of quite a lot of deals. And we also we build really strong relationships with our clients. So often we're thinking alongside our clients, and our clients also use us as like a thinking board, just like brainstorm stuff. So that becomes pretty cool. In terms of how it is in the movies, though, there's no smoking in the office and all of that. There's no cigars and all that kind of thing.
But there's lots of coffee. There's lots of coffee and calls.
No, not really. I think people are focused on how. You remember, it's all about culture, right? And I think that culture died after the global financial crisis. I remember I joined as a grad in like 2007, and I think the heydays were back then. And banks have changed.
I joined in 2002, and I was told the same thing, that the heyday was just
was over.
The days of long lunches and the rest of it. I mean, building, and there is still a place for building relationships over lunch, or a round of golf, or a couple of glasses of wine, or whatever. But I think it's the industry is in every respect much cleaner than it was before. Ethics are ethical behavior, responsible behavior, towards each other and to our clients and to the shareholders, and all that is absolutely paramount.
Good, clean fun. Hey, Tom?
Yeah, the first 2 minutes.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. The next question that we have is, what can a graduate expect to do on a daily basis? What does a normal day in a life of a Citi Bank corporate banking employee look like?
You, Susie?
I don't mind coming in there. Since I was recently, I think the main goal is to support your team. So the banker, the associate, and the analyst. So no day is the same. And I assume that's the same all the way to the top. Literally no day is the same, which is what also makes it really exciting. So it goes from admin intensive to client materials, speaking to our credit risk colleagues. If there's a deal, it could be very deal related, or it could be just from a day-to-day client's operations operations, transactional banking, assisting there. So from a grad perspective, there really is, I can't say no, any day was the same for me, but you can expect to learn a lot. You get a lot of exposure, and especially in our team, it's a relatively small team, I think. So you do get a lot more exposure than you would have gotten in a much bigger team. So yeah, I think that's in a nutshell what I'd say.
So no day is the same.
Yeah.
I think people just have, especially students, there's this perspective that once you start working, all your days are the same and 8 to 5 every day, doing the same thing every day and stuff like that. So I'm really glad that you guys were able to, tell us a bit more about that. So the next question is what criteria and degree does corporate banking look for when selecting an intern, a graduate, or an analyst? What criteria and just what degree is looked for or scouted for?
I'll start off, but I'm sure that others will add as well, because what degree? Frankly, to me, it doesn't make a massive difference. I think that people's aptitude to be a good banker, that's there whether they studied a heavily financial course or something completely unrelated like I did, which was I studied classics and still ended up in banking. So I think it's I mean, obviously some degrees can give you a bit of a head start in certain areas, but it's there's when I'm looking personally, when I'm looking at a CV, I don't spend too much time over precisely the more studied. And then as for criteria in people, or qualities in people, I think there's lots, but one I would say is an ability to take the initiative and take ownership. It's as Susie was saying, it's a relatively small team, and I don't think it's maybe you guys feel differently, but I don't think it's too hierarchical. There's not certain roles or tasks that the more senior people say, no, you're not allowed to touch that. I'm the guy who has to speak to the client or talk to this person. What responsibility people can take, the better. There's always room to grow and take the initiative.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add on that, and I agree with Tom. Even when I look at CVs, actually, I don't think I even look at what the degree the person studied, or anything of that sort. For me, what stands out is what else they have done alongside their degree. I think when you're part of corporate banking, you have to multitask a lot. So if you can kind of show multitasking in your university career, that stands out for me. And then similar to what Tom has also mentioned, just around being able to take charge, so being a leader in what you're doing. That's very important. When Susie was a grad, for example, often she would have to find herself running with certain items, leading that work stream. And she was very much capable in it. So that's what we look for, especially if you're coming in as an intern or a grad, being able to multitask and being able to lead.
Does anyone else want to add on to that? Also, a pressing question that comes up is when writing on your CV and stuff like that, I know some hiring managers would prefer you not to add something that's non-related, like how Neil now is telling us to add the things that you've done, during school and stuff like that. Would like playing cricket and stuff like that when I'm applying for a corporate banking job, should I add those things? Is it beneficial to add those things, or just, is it just not that important? And also, for example, also someone adding things they did in high school, like if they were the top rugby player in high school, I know some people would be like, why are you adding that? because it's completely unrelated. So there's a lot of like, you know, confusion around what's related and what's not related to the job. So you find people kind of like, okay, should I add the F&B trading game that I was in, or should I add that I was the cricket player, or just, what do you guys think about that?
I'd say my view is definitely put it in two reasons. One, who knows, you might make a personal connection with the person who's interviewing you. You know, they might be a big soccer fan themselves, or they might even have done something similar to you in the past, and that immediately gives you something to you know, to connect with them about. And like you said a few times, interviews are very personal things, and if you can make a good connection with someone, that's important, especially if it's you're listing things that are demonstrating certain qualities that will be useful in your work life. And the second reason it's good is because it will give you a chance to talk about something. If you know, if they ask you about it, it gives you a chance to talk about something you're actually passionate about and knowledgeable about, and that can also, you know, it can help to alleviate any risk of an interview becoming a bit dry and dull. So for those reasons and probably others, I'd say definitely put those things on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that you're only listing what you're number one at, like community forums, projects, religious communities, focuses, clubs. So we can get a little bit more about you and give us content to ask you about.
Okay.
And even part-time jobs. I know a lot of people in university either work on the weekends or during holidays. I think that's really, really important because it kind of shows that you're quite matured as a person, as in you've been in the working world already. So I think that's quite important as well.
Okay. So the next question that we have is, does you know, corporate banking have any subdivisions, and what are they? I'm not sure what this question is.
It's one, well, within Citi as a whole, yes, it does, and we're split up. You know, there's a global head, then there's regional heads, and then country heads, and then teams within each country. I mean, our team of 13 odd people is a single unit, but it is loosely divided into by coverage. So some people focus more on you know, the corporations, as in you know, industrial companies or whatever, and other people focus on financial institutions, and other people focus on the public sector side of things. So they're those kind of informal subdivisions, but you know, ultimately it's one team.
Okay. So the next person asked that, are you guys able to disclose some of the successful deals in corporate banking that you've worked on? So a student asks us, are there any, are you able to disclose that?
Yeah, no, well, we've worked on, you know, a lot of high-profile transactions for our larger clients in the recent past. I mean, you know, a lot of our names that we cover are household names. So, you know, MT or Sasol or Naspers, the mining companies, and so we have these companies often go to the bond market and raise money there, and we've led a lot of recent bond transactions, including Sasol's last bond issuance just a little bit earlier on this year, which was a great success. So yes, we're pretty busy with high profile transactions, but also it's I mean, some of the successful things that we do don't ever, you know, surface in the news. Maybe we're setting up a new cash management system for a client, or helping them to hedge their exposure to the oil price, you know, in a way that isn't going to come out into the open, but from the client's point of view is extremely important, and it'll save them tens of millions of dollars every year.
Oh, and does it always, also this is another question, does it always look like suits and ties and suitcases, walking to the boardroom? Is that how you guys, sign deals or make deals? Or can you just be casual? The office dressing culture, is it always suits and suitcases and,
I'm in the office, Susie's in the office.
No, I feel terrible for the guys because, African climate, it's easier to wear a dress and a blazer than be in a full suit tie. So sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable. But yeah, look, we're professional. We're not like some days it's dressed down. I think people can come in a little bit chilled, but there's a certain decorum, I think, that needs to be maintained. But given that we're now, some of the teams are working from home, you can be a little bit casual. But, if a client wants to speak to you, you don't want to be in shorts and a strap top. It just doesn't look good.
When Neil's come in wearing his socks, I had to send him back home a few times. But
yeah. I'm not allowed to be wearing sandals in the office anymore.
No,
no, I was just going to say that, when you're meeting these clients, some of them are CEOs of really big companies, and they're trusting you with a lot of money, with a lot of their strategy, etc. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes you also have to just be professional in front of your clients so that you show them a bit of respect. So I think that's quite important. So I think the corporate banking culture, I don't think I carry a bag. I don't think I've seen someone carry a bag in a long time. But I think suits, ties, and formal shirts, especially when you're talking to clients, that does work very well.
Yeah, and you could have tech companies, they dress down, but it's okay for the client to get dressed down. But they want to make sure that they're dealing with someone professional, unless they tell you, okay, guys, don't worry, you don't have to wear ties or something. But we kind of get a sense of how the client is, right? We're dealing with their money. We're putting them at risk. Perception counts.
Yeah, true. Also, I just wanted to ask.
From mine. Sorry. Go ahead. Fine.
No, it's fine.
I was just saying, I think from me, especially when I came in, I think not that I really imagined it to be like a suits type of thing, but I was quite excited for that like corporate professional wear every day. So I think, especially when you're starting out, I assume the rest of the team got bored of that very quickly. But I think when you start out, it is quite nice as well in that sense.
Yeah. And I think also this is another question that students would like to know. When dressing up for interviews, right? So, some, of course, interviewers want to know who you are, but also you need to keep yourself professional, So what standard of dress should someone coming for an interview? And this was pre-pandemic. I imagine that some of the interviews are being held online now. But before the pandemic and stuff like that, how would you expect someone who's coming in for an interview to look like? If they're wearing like sweats and just casual clothing and stuff, is that a good impression? Because I don't know, you could say they're just being themselves, or do you expect someone to, be dressed very well and nicely, and basically be fashionable? Like, I don't know,
Well, look, it comes down to your personal style, and let's be honest, we have to think about affordability, especially in our country, and who's actually pitching up. So I think look smart and look prepared. If you come with a sloppy t-shirt, or you look undressed, or you look like you just came from gym, it gives us a sense of how you're taking us seriously. And you'll find most time on the side we're dressed professionally, or some, I doubt we'd be dressed down. I'm dressed down a little bit today, but I think bear that in mind. If you want to be trendy and fashionable, go ahead, but understand the forum you're going into, and be presentable. If you want to be suited up in a tie and a pop collar and everything and cufflinks, go ahead. But a simple suit or blazer with a tie or dress or something appropriate should be fine. Or even a jersey and a collared shirt. I would say.
Yeah, I think you can't go you can't go wrong with if you're a man, a shirt and tie, jacket thing. I know it sounds very it does sound very formal, and probably your interviewers will not be wearing a tie. But it just takes that part of it off the table. I mean, if you're, you know, you can, you know that you're that you've passed the test if you do that. If you want to be a bit more flamboyant, it could work in your favor if you carry it off, but the chances are that at least maybe you know, one of it falls flat with one or other of the interviewers. So if, yeah, I would personally suggest playing it safe, but equally, if you feel free, if you want to express yourself through the medium of clothing, then
Yeah.
Like the one story I could share that I remember was a guy who came to interview for a grad program at ABSA, and he rocked up with a blazer and a white shirt, but he wore a shirt underneath, and it had a Standard Bank logo that came straight through the tie or the shirt, and we couldn't get away from it. We just asked him, but you know, it's a direct competitor, and you're wearing a Standard Bank logo. Like, we could understand, but he didn't get the job. He didn't get through, but people remember that interview because it was such an affront that you're coming to ABSA and you're wearing a Standard Bank logoed shirt. So you're aware of that as well. Competitor logos and branded corporate shirts. You think you can't see it, but you can see it. So be aware.
Okay. So the next question that we have is, what is the growth potential in corporate banking, and does it have mobility? One of the students asked that. Is there mobility? Like, I know who was speaking, I think it was Tom, who was telling us about how you're able to move from countries, you know, there's branching different countries and stuff like that. So is there any like mobility in Citi Bank, and specifically in the corporate banking division, to move around or just to maybe upskill your career?
In short, absolutely. Now, of course, in today's environment with COVID and the rest of it, obviously that has impeded mobility a little bit. But you know, that being said, earlier this year, one of our team, she moved to London to take up a permanent role over there. We have 2 people in the team at the moment who are on, if you like, short-term assignments. So our goal here really is to find and nurture, you know, top South African talent, and you know, give them the benefit of everything that Citi has to offer. And Citi, as I said it right at the start, is a global bank. We have offices all around the world, and opportunities come up in those offices. And so, and if you perform, then absolutely you will have the opportunity to be mobile.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So does anyone? Okay, let's move on to the next question. It's now 10 past. So another student asked, what are the main features in corporate banking? The main features.
Maybe I can give it a go, and Tom, you can come in. There's various roles in a bank. We are a relationship management team. So we are specialists in various sectors. We know our clients in their sectors very well. And we know the treasury and the financing and the liquidity requirements of those clients very well. And then we get to see all of the diversity of the bank's products and services we can offer to our clients. So we're an industry-focused team, but we're also a sales role, sales and coordinator and project management, and sometimes a product in ourselves. Then you get other teams that are specifically products, where they're a product specialist, and then they deal with multiple industries. So I guess that's the kind of difference, where in corporate banking, your project management, your sales, and your product if we're executing loans for some of our clients. But you see multiple regions, multiple products, multiple banking services, but you might only be dealing with certain industries.
Okay.
And I think maybe what's really cool about corporate banking, especially from someone who's coming out of university is that we're not specialists in one product. We give you a good overview of the entire bank, meaning that you will work across different products. You'll work with teams across the globe. So you kind of figure out, okay, this is what this team does, this is what this product does. And then maybe after 2 or 3 years, when you wish to specialize, you can move into that specific product.
I would also just say that, I don't know if this counts as a feature, but we want to be the best, and we believe we're the best, of course. But we want to do for our clients. We want to serve our clients better than any other bank. We've got the people to do it. We've got the network, and just think, every year we have these client surveys, and if a client survey comes back and says that Citi is not one of their top banks, it gets flagged, and it's we have to look at why. So there is a real culture of excelling, exceeding expectations, that we're the best, and although it's hard work, it's also very gratifying when it works out.
Yeah. Thank you for that, guys. The last question that a student gave in is, what are some of the innovative systems or technology that have helped you in corporate banking and client deals? So are there any technological items that you guys have found very helpful in corporate banking and client deals? And I think this person's asking because they are an IT student and someone who's very interested in technology, and wondering how they can fit that into a corporate banking job. So
Yeah, I don't think it's directly in our team. That wouldn't sit in our team, but that would be another team that helps us with some of our client analytics, looking at data, looking at forecasts, or building out some of our products and solutions, like on payments, trying to figure out where a payment is, what's happening with it, batch payments, that kind of stuff. But I don't think, Tom, that corporate banking team is responsible for tech build out, but you could put an idea into the system and lead a tech project.
Yeah, we definitely benefited from I was thinking Zoom is a good example of technology that implemented that has helped us. I mean, we obviously used to have a lot of face-to-face meetings, still have a few, but our video conferencing abilities pre-COVID were way less sophisticated than they are now. So that has helped us, and it's actually, although it's still not as good as a face-to-face meeting, it does mean that we can still see our clients virtually much more often than we would have been able to in the past. So it's helped us in the specific COVID environment, but actually there's a lasting benefit from it. And then just generally speaking, I think that automation of the movement of money effectively has helped us hugely, and I think it will continue to help us hugely. And I think Citi is trying to keep pace itself with with how technology is developing. It's a very, very live area. A lot of our clients are, some of them are very sophisticated, some of them are surprisingly unsophisticated. So it's I think that the exchange of ideas, technological ideas around automation has been a theme, and will definitely continue to be a big theme for us.
Yeah, thank you so much, for that. So I think just as a bonus question to this, right? And I think this is very important to a lot of students, especially the IT and technology part of it, because we have quite a few students here at Wits, and just in general in South Africa, that don't have a lot of computer-based skills. So this is a question I want to direct at the corporate banking division. Is computer literacy a very important part of the job, like skills like Excel, Microsoft Word, and just those things? Are they very important? And do you think that would you advise students to learn those skills now while they're still in varsity and just enhance their Excel and Microsoft Word and just the different computer skills they have? Will that be very useful in their job later on?
Yeah, maybe I could step in on this one. So to be honest, when I was in honors, I probably had very basic understanding of the Microsoft Office suite, so Excel, PowerPoint, etc. But that did put me in a bit of a disadvantage when I started off, because people who do come with those skills are able to excel very, very quickly once you're in the workspace. And you use Excel and PowerPoint everywhere you go. Whether it's in banking, whether it's in a different sector, you'll always use Excel, PowerPoint quite a bit. But especially for those people who don't have access to PowerPoint and Excel, especially in the honors years, etc., and they're trying to get into banking, it's not something that you cannot learn. Even in my past 7 years, I'm still learning so much more around Excel and so much more around PowerPoint. And similarly, the grads that come in as well, the way we're set up is that if you have a year or two more experience than someone below you, you're obviously teaching. So the culture in corporate banking is very much you're there to learn, especially if you're a junior. And then if you're a little bit more senior, apart from learning, you're also there to teach. So there is quite a nice culture around developing our juniors, especially in Excel, PowerPoint, so that one day you guys become super professional and able to run stuff on your own.
Oh, so what I'm getting is that there is training for that. Neil?
Yeah, so
I wouldn't call it training, but like, sorry, Neil, I remember when I first joined, I mean, I would have put a proficient in Excel on my CV, but looking back, I don't think I was proficient at all. But I remember, I mean, sitting down side by side with Neil, and there is room for everyone, for the team to teach you. And it's not like formal training, but definitely the team does help you in upskilling yourself. Even around PowerPoint, that's something you'll use a lot, and the team really does help.
So are you proficient now, Lizzie?
And then we'll have Thomas.
I just think, as with so many things, I think the aptitude, the ability to learn rather than the skills you come in with is more important. And of course, it will give you a head start if you're already a whiz on Excel and PowerPoint. It'll save you lots of time and help you be more efficient. But I don't think I've ever been in a situation where the decision whether to offer someone a job has come down to whether they've got Excel skills or not.
And Neil, you were saying?
Oh, no, I was just chatting to Zuzi if she's proficient on Excel. But I think, as Tom just mentioned now, I think what's very important, and if we can try and see that in an interview, is having that ability to learn. If you're starting off your career, sometimes you have to put in extra hours just so that you can actually learn and grow with that role. And then similarly, I remember when I first started off as a grad, I put in a lot of hours, especially when in my first year or two in banking. But now, after 5 or 6 years, when I look back at it, I realized, sure, if I didn't do that then, I probably wouldn't be at Citi right now, because I've learned so much by spending that extra time when I first started off.
And look, sometimes you're going to be asked to do things you don't enjoy. Like when I was a grad, someone asked me to reformat presentations, like turn brown blocks yellow or make them with green borders. And like I did it for 5 different versions and I hated it. But after a while you get proficient at it and then you're skilled and then, presentations are easier. So sometimes you've got to take the baby steps. If we put a grad or an analyst in front of a client and say, go pitch and run the meeting, you're going to bomb out. So you need some coaching and some prep work. And sometimes I think people call for stuff when maybe you need some groundwork before you're ready for it. So just bear that in mind. Like Neil hates it when I tell him to recolor stuff.
Fortunately, we have a presentation technology department that can do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I think now we've just finalized. Cynthia, is everything okay on your side?
Yeah, everything is okay. I think everything everything went well.
Oh, okay.
Didn't stop recording after 5 minutes, so we need to do it all again.
No, it's still recording, it's still fine. So we've just reached the end of our meeting. It's now exactly 2:30, and I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for coming today, for taking time out of your schedule. It is so appreciated. I appreciate it so much. And this will be very beneficial to our students and the students at economics and finance school. So I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for doing this.